Right after Evelyn headshotted the monster at the end of the first movie, they had looked at their camera monitors and saw a couple more coming towards them in a dead sprint. Regan upped the base and Evelyn racked a shotty like she was the Doomslayer. Lee Abbott's getting some oranges for the ball game the day the apocalypse started. When Lee's son gets up to bat, a giant meteor starts plowing through Earth's atmosphere. The Abbotts race home, but before Lee can make it to his truck, all hell breaks loose. Lee panic signs to his deaf daughter that shit hit the fan and they need to get the hell out of there. Evelyn gets attacked too and pulls a high-speed reverse 180 into a light pole to get away from the monster. Regan sees the crash and runs out into the street after her. Lee grabs her and they dive into a restaurant where tons of other people are holding out. It's just gonna start crying, loudly praying to their god, or calling their family. Lee and Regan run for some place that isn't being attacked by giant aliens. They get tailed by one of them, but before they get pimp smacked across the street, the town cop hits it with the pump. 473 days to right after Lee sacrificed himself for his kids, and Regan figured out that her cochlear implants can get the monsters to open up wide enough for Evelyn to pop a slug into their suck hole. The next morning they head over to their burning barn to assess the damage. Evelyn hands little Marcus the shotty so he and Regan can split up to make a sound bomb and light the fire signal, while she tiptoes past the hopefully fully dead aliens to find a carriage for her newborn. The remaining members of the Abbott family decide they need help and can't stay here any longer, so they head in the direction of the sole surviving fire signal. There's no warm welcome when they arrive. It is a year and a half after the meteor impacts. Besides the monsters, looters and bandits are a danger that any group of survivors will need to defend against. Aimlessly running after setting off a trap is also a bad idea because there could be more traps.
Our main girl has found a way to combat these monsters. Her hearing device, which by the way is a cochlear implant, emits a high frequency that they don't seem to like very much. Using this to stop any of the monsters and even cause their outer shell to open up, break through their barrier and finally shoot them down with a clean headshot.
She unlocks the bear trap and gets him up and running again.
Our characters are rescued by Emmett, who was a former friend of the family but has become quite irritated and hostile towards others.
He pleads that he can't help them and that they can't stay, that there's not enough food, water, or anything. Not so easy to turn away a helpless baby. His stopwatch beeps again after setting it when they enter the container, signaling that their oxygen is running out. Emmett hands Evelyn some hard alcohol to disinfect Marcus's leg before wrapping and splinting it. Regan tries to soothe Marcus's pain with some easy listening from her boombox. Emmett asks Evelyn how the speaker works, and she says she has no clue. The radio starts playing a song called Beyond the Sea, a clear indication that there's other survivors. Emmett says he's heard it before but isn't interested in saving whoever's left alive, not after the atrocities he's seen survivors commit to one another. In fact, he says he wants them gone the next morning. Regan then pulls Marcus into the furnace to tell him her grand plan.
She finds out that the song blasting through the radio, called Beyond the Sea, is a code, or more specifically, a location where hope can be found. Not just that, but she's also able to locate that radio station from where the signal came in. It's located on a nearby island.
She's planning on going alone since Marcus can't walk and Evelyn needs to monitor his wounds and take care of the baby. Regan sneaks out before everyone wakes up the next morning.
Because Regan knew that her mother wouldn't let her go, she sneaked out and now tries to find the island on her own.
When Evelyn finds out, she convinces Emmett to go out searching for her. Regan finds a train car and pops in to take a look-see. Nothing but rotting corpses. This was a total massacre. She does find a first aid kit that will be useful for Marcus's leg. When she goes to grab it, what was left of the conductor slumps onto her, causing her to have a mini freakout. She doesn't realize how loud she squeaked, nor is she able to hear the sound of the alien stalking her from the other side of the train car until it's right on top of her. She's good with the radio, not so much with the shotgun. Regan's unable to rack the pump action in time and kisses her own ass goodbye.
In a touching moment shortly after, Emmett tells Reagan that he will bring her home. She replies,
implying that there is nothing to go back to.
Reagan convinces him to help her bring the radio gun to the islands. Emmett and Reagan wait until the next morning to head for the coast. Meanwhile, Evelyn heads back home to gather the medical supplies necessary to treat Marcus's wounds. She also finds 2 spare compressed air tanks in the back. Marcus is left to tend to the baby. Compressed oxygen is hard to come by, so it decides to go explore the foundry at night with an injured leg while your baby's left alone in the basement.
At the same time, his mother is almost back and of course is now endangered as well. Marcus hides in this giant soundproof oven or whatever the heck that is, but the bad thing is he forgot to use the white cloth to prevent the door from locking him in, trapping himself and the baby. After just a few minutes, he's already starting to slowly suffocate.
So we'll need to slow his heart rate and breathing or siphon some of that O2 off. Bad news though, it's nearly empty after wasting it all earlier. Marcus's dumb decisions led to him having to choose between being slaughtered by aliens or carbon dioxide poisoning. Marcus chooses death by alien claws, except he can't get the furnace unlocked with his new alarms and starts hyperventilating. Evelyn hears the foundry crucible crash and immediately knows something is horribly wrong. She hurries inside, places one of her precious compressed air cans in the middle of an oil pit, fires a shot off to draw the creature into it, and a second shot to ignite the mix. The fire sets off the sprinklers, which also does the trick of covering her sound while she sneaks downstairs to the furnace where her children are inevitably hiding and dying.
Marcus, wake up!
While all this is going down, Emmett and Reagan are just reaching the coast. When they get to the dock, there's a little girl kneeling down by some fishing line. Emmett stupidly sets his rifle down and tries to help the little girl, who then slips a noose around his neck and runs off with his gun. Emmett's tied up in some fishnet with rattling cans attached to it. If he tries to make a move, the monsters will be all over him. It's not looking too good for Reagan either. Emmett motions for her to dive into the water because he's about to make some noise. When Reagan picks Emmett up in a paddle boat, he spits out her implant he snagged off the scav before shivving him. It'd be best to scout out the island before beaching this time, especially since you lost your guns. They stumble into a community cookout and bonfire, which can't seem real after what they've been through. Emmett hands the cochlear implant to the island man and tells him that if they can broadcast its frequency, other survivors can tune in with their radios and use it to fight the monsters. Reagan and Emmett finally get to sit down, take a deep breath, and let all the grief and sadness of their lost loved ones crash into them. It doesn't last long though. When Emmett goes out for a walk on the beach, he discovers the boat that the monster was ripping into the night before. There was nothing that the islanders could have done to stop something like this from happening. Emmett does his best to warn everyone, but it's too late. G-Mon, Reagan, and Emmett hop into the caddy and haul ass to the broadcasting studio while honking. G-Mon gets too hung up on baiting the monster out of town and gets himself killed.
I have to get back to my family.
Reagan and Emmett sneak past the alien, and just as it catches on to them, Reagan hits broadcast.
She turns on the radio on air and streams the sounds to any device that is tuned in.
Evelyn and Marcus are under siege as well, but now that they're armed with a radio tuned in to Reagan's implant's frequency, they can fight back.
That is, when Marcus figures out that Reagan is alive and that the signal that was sent is a perfectly timed blessing.
The movie ends with the tides of war changing in the humans' favor.